Welcome to part 2 of your Happy Hips Challenge. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about moving the femur back in the socket. Okay, so I know this is going to sound a little crazy, but our bones move, joints move in every socket. And so having that optimal positioning is what helps keep the joint healthy and happy. Now, muscles surround the joint. Muscles move the joint. All right, bones don't move on their own. Muscles move bones. All right, so depending on how the muscles around an area are firing determines where the joint sits. So one thing we want to look at with the hip that ends up happening to a lot of people, more arthritis in the front of the hip, more front labral tears in westernized societies. And so we end up with this femur that creeps forward in the joint. Now, why does that happen? Okay, I have a couple theories, and we're going to talk about those as we move into the next exercise. We're going to be doing both a passive, which means not using muscle, just stretching. So passive would be like somebody manipulating your joint, you stretching your joint. These are passive things. Active means contracting the muscles to move something. So we're going to go through both a passive, because sometimes you have to create range, because it can be stiff in the back of this capsule. You can have tight muscles in the back of the capsule, all right, that will restrict it from moving. So we're going to first do a passive activity. Then we're going to follow that with an active activity. And what you're thinking about, I want you to envision your hip socket. It's a nice round hip socket. Then I want you to envision this ball moving backwards in the joint as we go through these next two exercises. Okay, it's going to be so much fun, and I'm hoping that you're going to feel your hip move in ways that you can't imagine it moving. All right, so you're going to join me back on your trusty bed again, and I'm going to hop around the back so that you can see more easily. And we're going to do a pigeon stretch, like the pigeon stretch in yoga, where you bring your knee into a triangle in front of your body. We're going to do this, but we're going to do it with a little bit of a physical therapy bias. So we're going to try to actually slide the femur back, slide the hip back in the socket, okay, which is going to be really cool. So imagine this trusty little skeleton. Imagine he was bringing his leg up on the bed like this, so you can see how the femur sits in the socket, and we're just going to take this bone and we're going to slide it back. All right, I don't know if that was helpful or not, but hopefully it was. Helps me to be able to see things. We got a lot of skin in the way, muscle, ligaments, all sorts of stuff. Okay, so you're going to go into a triangle, square your body up with your leg. Foot is outside of your leg. The first thing I want you to do is just feel for me. Do you feel restriction here? Does it feel tight already? I want you to lean forward a little bit. Does this feel tight? Do you get any pinching in the front? Do you feel any tension in the back? Okay, so imagine that this bone is sitting here and it already sits in the front of the socket, and you go to spill forward, you're gonna pinch all of those soft tissues, okay? So this pinching can lead to an eventual degenerative labral tear down the road, okay? So think about repetitively pinching something, it just makes it angry, okay? So we're going to be thinking about what's going on here. Where do you feel restriction? Is it in the back or is it pinching in the front? So that's going to give us clues. Is the back of the hip tighter, or are we just running up on the front? Either way, the femur is probably shoved a little bit too far forward in the socket. So what we're going to do to try to move it back, this is a passive exercise, is we're going to take our hand and we're going to gently move the femur back in the socket. So I'm going to take, basically I'm pulling backwards on my knee. You can try either arm, you can try both the right or the left to see where you can generate a little bit more force. It might feel like you don't move, or you might feel like, I feel like I get a good half an inch to an inch of movement as I gently oscillate my leg femur back in the socket. So your goal here, you're thinking about just taking this femur bone and sliding it back in the socket. You should feel more of a stretch or an opening back here. And this is really easy if you have a nice high bed. You might need to do it on a couch. So the back of the couch sometimes can be a great height, or sometimes I'll do it with patients if I'm in like a workout type setting where we have spin bikes. You can do it, or upright bikes. So the seats are usually fairly big on the upright bikes, and so you can get your leg on and adjust the height of the seat to the bike to fit. So that's also a neat little trick for being able to do the stretch. So you can do a nice passive stretch if you feel the soft tissue lengthening in the back, and you can add that mobilization where you push on your leg to get a little bit more of that stretching going on in the back of the capsule to move it back. Now remember, passive doesn't hold, right? Passive creates range for us, but it doesn't hold. How the muscles fire tells our hip where to go. So if we do a stretch and then we never follow it with any type of activation exercise, what are we left with? back where we started, okay? So why stretching doesn't hold. It's why foam rolling doesn't hold. It's why oftentimes massaging muscle doesn't hold. But creating that range can be a key piece of the puzzle. Now, let's move into the new range that we just made actively. Grab a ball for me. I want you to go ahead and lie down. And this might be a little bit hard if you have a really soft bed, so you might want to join me on the floor. And lie down on the floor. And this exercise was inspired for me by the Posture Restoration Institute. I love their approach to hips. It's amazing. So their stuff is really great. Okay, so you're going to grab a ball, pillow, yoga block, towel roll. No excuse. You have something to use in your house. All right, so grab that and squeeze. What I want you to do is feel those inner thighs turn on, feel those adductors turn on. And then what we're going to do is think about that shifting that we just did. And you're going to think about shifting your femur. You're going to squeeze and shift your femur back in the socket. You're going to feel the opening in the back. You're going to feel your inner thigh working. And then squeeze and shift the other way. You're going to feel that side working. And you should be able to notice about an inch or two difference between your knees. All right, let me try to do it this way for you. Okay, so I'm going to squeeze, and then I'm going to shift. Come back to the middle. Squeeze, shift. So you are shifting the femur back in the socket. Now, if this feels really hard, you can try it sitting up, okay? So you can sit up. It's a great thing to do in the car if you're in the passenger seat. You can even just use your hands between your knees. So you can do this in the passenger seat, squeeze and shift back, squeeze and shift back. Now you're gonna make sure you don't hike your hip up. We don't want the motion to come from your back. We want it to come from in the hip joint, right? We're moving that femur back in the socket to make it happy. All right, so squeeze, shift back, squeeze, shift back. You can also hold and then shift back a little more. You don't wanna get pinching, okay? So pinching tells me a couple things. But one of them is you probably flipped into more of an anterior tilt. So you probably flip forward, which is going to make it more likely to pinch. So just check your pelvis positioning and make sure that you're not spilled forward when you do the exercise, because that's going to decrease that range there and create a lot more potential for pinching. Okay, so neutral pelvis, squeeze and pull back. So you can use a ball, you can use a towel roll in the car, give that a shot, and sitting. You can also do it with your feet up on a wall. You can engage your hamstrings, pull down on the wall, squeeze and shift, okay? So try it different ways. See if you can do it in standing. See if you can do it sitting in different avenues. So what we want to do essentially is create motion in your hip to be able to go into that range in a variety of different positions and different places so that your hip knows, okay, moving into the back of the socket is safe, it's easy for me to do, and it's something that I can utilize in daily life. Okay, give that a shot. Let me know if you learned anything. Let me know if that feels stuck or weird or it's just not happening, because that can give us clues about your body. And then in the next video, we're going to take a look at why those hip flexors feel tight, why the TFL feels tight, why the psoas often feels tight, which can lead to that achy back. So join me in the next video to learn how we're going to fix that.